I will not start with where AI started back in the 60s. Let's look at the last 2 decades. Making artificial intelligence as good as natural intelligence of human beings or the general intelligence of human beings is what I call the holy grail of computing. About 25 years ago, it seemed unattainable for at least 100 years out. The human brain was still being understood. We just have now understood that there are 86 billion neurons in the human brain, and each neuron is connected with the other through about 7,000 connectors. I don't want to again get into technicalities, but it means there are trillions of things happening in our brain, which makes our brain so intelligent. Even the dumbest of our people is so intelligent. But today, we are getting closer and closer to the stage where we are able to mimic the brain's capability, the human brain's capability. So, a lot of things are happening in many research labs, which make me confident that unlike what people thought in the past, we are going to see the singularity moment happening much earlier. So let me put it this way, another way. When do we humans test our brain? We test it in board games like chess or crossword, when you do crosswords, or where do human beings test their strength? We test it in weightlifting, wrestling, and other things like that. Where do human beings test both brain and the brawn? It's usually on the sports field, especially in team events where multiple people have to coordinate their acts. So games with multiple players are the normal place to go to test the human brain's capability to develop business solutions also. One of the many things that happened in 1995 was an initiative called RoboCup. It was a soccer match we played between robots and between robots, 2 teams of robots. And these robots would look at the ball and decide where to position themselves, who should defend, who should strike, and so on and so forth. It was an unusual annual feature, played like the Olympics between countries. There's a lot of fanfare, TV coverage in the US, for instance. In India, I only see after the event some snapshots of it. The objective was that humanoids should beat human beings in a real football match in 2050. Now, that kind of progress between 1995 and 2050 was impossible unless technology advanced at an exponential rate, unlike the linear way in which most technologies developed in the world till then. Therefore, the organizers made it a rule that every participating team had to put its entire software in open source. Open source means anyone can copy from there without having to pay for it. So that in the next year, all the teams from different countries got the benefit of the best software and tools used by on that and make their next year's software or the AI software so powerful that it would be a big leap between 1995, 96, 96 and 97. That way, with these huge leaps happening every year, by 2050, we'll actually have a football match between humanoids, human-like robots, and human beings playing the match. Of course, they have the ambition that it should win over human beings. Therefore, the organizers made it a rule that every bit of software had to be put into the open source. So no starting from scratch, no patent rights, etc. This exponential growth was expected to make the world a different place. And it's happening. Now, why was soccer chosen? Soccer was an extremely complex game with the situation changing second to second. Because many of the 22 players were all actively in play. Very few people are standing there doing nothing. Way more complex than cricket and even more complex than chess. So fantastic progress is made in software and hardware, which is making this race to the top even faster. And there were a lot of other initiatives that happened across the computer science world, including IBM Computer, called Deep Blue, which beat a world chess champion. Around 1998, it was felt that one must develop a computer which could even beat human beings in a game called Go. Now, it's a game which is played by the Japanese, Chinese, and Koreans. It's a very ancient game. It's much more complicated than chess, which is played on an 8x8 board. This is played on 19x19. And the difference between 8x8 and 19x19 is that it's explosive number of opportunities to make moves. There are some people who claim that the number of possible moves after you do the third step is equal to the number of atoms in the universe. Now, I've not computed that. So let's say it's very complicated. So they said this sort of thing will not happen for another 100 years. Because when Deep Blue, the IBM computer, beat human beings at a chess game, it happened because the brute force of the computer would compute all possible options quickly and then make a move. Now, if you want to do 19x19 as opposed to 8x8 board, the power required for computing would be so huge, and despite Moore's law, people felt that even following that Moore's law of increasing capability of computers, it would be at least 100 years before a computer would be strong enough to figure out how to do all this. But human beings are very creative. So they said, look, let's forget about increasing the computing power. It'll happen by itself. But let's not depend on it. Let's try and see how is it that human beings are able to play a game of Go in 10 or 15 minutes. And the computer takes ages. So we are using some kind of a logic in our mind to say that so many of these options are not relevant, so many are relevant. It's just intuitive by training. Just how about training the computer to be a little more logical and not compute everything? That's how machine learning started. And machine learning grew by leaps and bounds. And then similarly, computer vision increased and improved significantly. The two came together. Artificial intelligence got such a huge boost. So eventually the computer defeated, with all this machine learning, defeated humans at Go, the game called Go, in just 17 years and not in 100 years. From then on, machine learning became a very, very important and rapidly growing field of artificial intelligence with multiple approaches to learning, like reinforced learning, supervised learning, semi-supervised or unsupervised learning. And there are many more methods of learning, but all kinds of learning methods were tried, just as we imitate how a child is trained to do things which it never knew. So today, artificial intelligence has reached a stage where it can do a whole lot of stuff. So ML used data created by human beings in the normal course of their life or work, and use it as training material, just as we use books, journals, and class notes. So at certain very well-defined tasks, machines are far better than human beings. But that is not artificial general intelligence. It's called artificial narrow intelligence, or ANI. ANI is not a threat to human beings. Instead, they make computerized devices extremely capable and for us. They make the device a slave. It's not making us a slave. So all along, computers needed written code, written in language that they could understand what we want them to do. But the day arrived when it was taught to understand natural language that we use. So when you suddenly saw ChatGPT in November 2022, where you could ask a good question in natural language and the computer would answer. That was a big breakthrough. So I'm not saying that natural language happened in November 22. There's a lot of work going on in natural language processing, computer vision, and other capabilities. And all these fascinating things were brought together and in this foundation model called GPT. There are many other foundation models. These large language models enable us to ask questions in natural language, for which the model would quickly generate an answer word by word very quickly into a full answer. It would generate each word after having figure out what the next word is, and then it figures the next word. It's not as if it understands the whole subject. It's got the ability to generate words and make a meaningful answer. The quality of the answers provided by Gen AI or generative AI has improved month on month from that day in November 22 when ChatGPT was released. Some Gen AI can beat good students in examinations, do work that intelligent junior lawyers do some work which our consultants do. Now it can beat many humans at certain tasks depending on how you train these. So just like a human trained on law books cannot pass a medical entrance exam, a computer or a program which is taught and trained in something in A cannot do B. So these foundation models have taken data from all kinds of sources and trained it. So today it looks like magic. You ask any question, it can answer. Okay? So this thing which we call generative AI should not be confused with artificial general intelligence. It knows nothing about the subject, but if it has been trained on adequate data, it can answer. It's not rote learning. It's not picking up something straight from the database and giving it to you. When our human beings do rote learning, they can memorize a shloka and say it. Whether they understand the shloka or not, you can just pick it up and give it to you. This doesn't do that. It actually generates the answer. The answer is not there in the database. So that's very fascinating. It understands the question and generates the answer. It's not like an FAQ or frequently asked question list which you see in websites, which has figured out most of the general questions people ask and have a standard answer. This will be each time you ask the question, the answer might be slightly different in the case of Gen AI. This is fantastic. But if you think of AGI or artificial general intelligence as a 6-story building, the expert at the top level, where AI can beat 99% of human beings at something, that's when it reaches the 6th floor. But right now it's at the ground floor. How long will it take to go up and reach the 6th floor? Well, in 2020, which is just 4 years ago, it was considered 50, 60 or 70 years ago away. But early 2023, that date came closer because huge advancements had happened. And it was thought by 2035 to 40, we will have expert level AGI. But by end of the year 2023, when I wrote my predictions for 2024, this paper which we are discussing, When the Tides Meet, I said that AGI is very likely to reach a level it's better than 90% of human beings with natural intelligence as early as 2028. My God, that's crazy and scary. But 2028 is by when some kind of singularity moment will happen, in the sense that it'll beat 90% of human beings with natural intelligence. So we've come from a stage where the computer was a dumb instrument, becoming a little more intelligent and good at some very narrow things. And now in 2028, we're reaching a stage where some huge things are happening.